Shri Sai Ram. Welcome to Sri Sathya Sai Lok Seva Gurukulam video session. You might have heard Gayatri Mantra. It has been taken from Vedas, and today we are going to discuss about Vedic literature. India, the Vedic age. We have discussed about Indus Valley civilization. There, the reasons for the decline I have discussed about the coming of the Aryans, and I am continuing with the topic, the Vedic age. The Vedic age marks a new phase in ancient Indian history, which began with the arrival of the Aryans in India around 1500 BC. So these Aryans, they have moved from Central Asia and they have entered India around 1500 BC. It lasted for almost 1,000 years, in the course of which a number of economic, social, political and religious developments took place. So remember that when Aryans entered India, they were good warriors. And it has influenced the culture of India. It has influenced in the field of economy, social, political and religious developments took place. So the developments or changes which has brought in India during the time of Aryans, which we will be discussing here. The Vedic age is accordingly divided into two periods of about early duration, that is early Vedic age and later Vedic period. So just understand that this Vedic age, it is divided into two different periods, that is early Vedic period and the later Vedic period. And the first among the Vedas, that is Rig Veda, which was written, and this early Vedic period, this Rig Veda, it was written, and in the later Vedic age, we are familiar with Yajur Veda, Sama Veda and Atharva Veda. First, we are going to discuss about early Vedic age. The early Vedic period is known mainly for the Rig Veda, which was the first Veda to be composed. Initially, it was like orally, it was transformed from one generation to another. Later on, it has been compiled and written as a book. So, initially, we cannot tell one person as the author of Vedas. The Vedic tribes lived in northwest part of the subcontinent, including Punjab and Afghanistan, and we do not have much archaeological evidences. So just understand, they have ended during the almost the end of Indus Valley civilization. So mainly it was focused in the Punjab and Afghanistan region, and we cannot trace, we don't have any archaeological evidences. This was probably because the early Vedic people generally led a nomadic life and did not stay for long at one place. See, why we are not having any archaeological evidences means they did not have settled life. Mainly they were having nomadic life, they were moving from one place to another. Their economy was mainly pastoral. That means they were familiar with cattle. Cattle rearing was the chief means of livelihood. Horses, goats and sheep were also important. So main cattle which they were familiar with, horses, goats and sheep. A little agriculture was also practiced. Since they were having nomadic life, they were not focusing more on agriculture. Family, clan and tribes were the social units, and there were no caste. So early Vedic age, just understand, there was a family culture, clan was there, even familiar with tribes called as Janas. I'll be discussing it now, where the social unit, so in the society, this was a social unit which was in practice, and there were no caste system. The chief of the tribe was called as Raja. So just understand the tribes, the tribal head, it was called as Jana, and there was a Janapadi or Raja. Similarly, later it has gone to a kingdom. Later, it has developed to a kingdom, the tribal group. So, this is the starting stage. The chief of the tribe is called as Raja. Popular assemblies of all the members of Janas called Sabha and Samitis had an important say in public affairs. So, just understand, it was the emergence of different kingdoms by this. This was the starting. So, there was the head of the tribe called as Raja or Janapati, assisted by two groups called Sabhas and Samitis. A number of deities were worshipped, and Indra being the most important of them. Early Vedic age, tribals, they were worshipping different deities, but Indra was the most important god. Now, coming to later Vedic age, things have changed compared to early Vedic age. The later Vedic period is known in much greater detail from the vast corpus of later Vedic literature as well as from archaeological material. So, here we are having the literary sources. I have just discussed that other four Vedas, which are they? Yes, Yajurveda, Samaveda and Atharva Veda. It is having even black magic. All those Vedas, it was written during the later Vedic age. The later Vedic literature comprised of the following books, that is of three Vedas, Samaveda, Yajurveda and Atharva Veda. And there were also commentaries on all the four Vedas called Brahmanas, Aranyakas and Upanishads. Explanation, in detail explanation, it is given in the form of other books like Brahmanas, Aranyakas and Upanishads. The Rig Veda is the earliest of four Vedas and it consists of 1028 hymns. So, if we consider all together in Rig Veda, there is 1028 hymns, that is to praise God. Rig Veda refers to the Sapta Sindhu or the land of 7 rivers. The starting, it is from that Sapta Sindhu. We have discussed the Sapta Sindhu even during the Indus Valley civilization on the banks of 7 rivers. The important Rig Vedic periods gods were Prithvi, the earth, Agni, the fire, Vayu, the wind, Varuna, the rain god and Indra, the thunder, god of thunder and raining. So, just understand, they started, as we have discussed during the Indus Valley civilization, that they started worshipping the nature. So, it was continued during the early Vedic period. There were also female gods like Aditi and Ushas. Not only male gods, they were familiar with, even female gods and goddesses were also there like Aditi and Ushas. Yes, now we will be discussing about later Vedic age. The later Vedic period is known in much greater detail from the vast corpus of later Vedic literature as well as from archaeological material. So, here we are having the evidence, we are having this archaeological remains, from that we are able to connect to history. So, this later Vedic period is much more than greater detail from the vast corpus of later Vedic literature as well as from archaeological material. The later Vedic literature comprised of the following books, that is the 3 Vedas. So, these books, Samaveda, Yajurveda and Atharva Veda, which was written during the later Vedic age. So, the book written during that period, it is giving an information about the people. There were also commentaries on all the 4 Vedas. So, about all, including Rig Veda, all the 4 Vedas, commentaries has been written, explanation has been given. So, it is called as Brahmanas, Aranyakas and Upanishads. Later Vedic age, they were familiar with painted graveware pottery. A large number of sites belonging to this period have also been excavated. So, we are having the archaeological remains. During the later Vedic periods, they were using painted graveware pottery, or it's also called as PGW. During the later Vedic period, there was a large-scale eastward movement of the Aryan communities to Indo-Gangetic Dwarf and Upper Ganga plains. So just understand, early Vedic age, they settled mainly in the Punjab and Afghanistan region. Coming to later Vedic period, they have moved inward, especially eastern part of India, and settled on the banks of river Ganga. Towards the end of the period, three important kingdoms came up further east. So just understand, slowly kingdoms started, and the kingdoms at that time, it was Kashi, Kosala and Videha. So this kingdom, it is actually connected to our Mahabharata and Ramayana. Kashi belongs, it is connected, about Kashi, it is mentioned in Mahabharata, and Kosala and Videha, especially in Ramayana. Kosala, it is connected to Ayodhya, and Videha, Vaidehi, the princess Vaidehi, that is Sita, Ma Sita belonged to Videha. So this Videha belonged to King Janaka. Agriculture was now the main occupation, and number of crops including rice, wheat and sugarcane were grown. So just understand, see, early Vedic age, they were doing agriculture but not in a large scale. Here they were, the main occupation, it was agriculture, and number of crops, they were familiar with the different crops like rice, wheat and sugarcane. Crafts also multiplied, iron weapons and tools were introduced. Not only that, they were familiar with the crafts and even iron weapons and tools. Now, people led a settled life in villages. So, village community life had started, and castes began to emerge and crystallize in the form of 4 varnas, that is Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras. Just understand, early Vedic age, all these caste discrimination, it was not there. It was mainly believed that this caste, it is based on the occupation. And coming to later Vedic age, this caste, it became so rigid. It is believed that when you see in this picture, these Brahmins, they belonged to the head part of Lord Vishnu, and Kshatriyas to the shoulder, and Vaishyas to the thigh, and Shudras belongs to the foot part. Later, during the later Vedic age, just understand that the caste system had also originated, and it is by birth. The powers of the king and his men increased, and those of the assembly were proportionately undermined. So the power of the king, it has increased, and the Sabha and Samiti, the importance of Sabha and Samiti, it has reduced. Sacrifices now became very elaborate. So this led later Vedic age, just understand that people, they were familiar with these sacrifices, religious sacrifices, as rituals and sacrifices. The importance of god Indra receded, and new gods such as Prajapati figured prominently, like Brahma became more prominent. Towards the end of this period, a reaction to the sacrificial ritual could also be observed, which we find mentioned in the Upanishads. So just understand, the sacrificial rituals is observed, which was find mentioned in Upanishads. So it is mentioned in Upanishads about the sacrifices, religious sacrifices and rituals. Now coming to the post-Vedic age. In the 6th century BC, there came up large territorial states. We have discussed about Kuru, Kosala, Vaidehi and all. So by the 6th century, lot of territorial states, it has emerged, especially in the northern and eastern India, which is called as Mahajanapadas. We have discussed about Jana and Janapati. Later on, around 16 Mahajanapadas were formed. And there were 16 such states, namely Anga, Magadha, Vaji, Kashi, Kosala, Malla, Kuru, Panjala, Vatsa, Avanti, Kamboja, Gandhara, Asaka, Chedi, Matsya and Surasena. These are the 16 Mahajanapadas. Among them, Magadha, Kosala and Avanti were the most powerful. So among the 16 Mahajanapadas, this Magadha, Kosala and Avanti became the most powerful ones. The extension of agriculture, growth of trade and industries, rise of territorial states and the beginning of urbanization gave rise to new forces in the society. So just understand the expansion of the agriculture, there was a trade relationship and industries were there, that means urbanization was there, and rise of territorial state, that means all these kingdoms, and the beginning of urbanization gave rise to a new forces in the society. The system of life, it has changed. Thus, the 6th century BC was also a period of socio-religious transformation. So, there were a lot of changes. People expressed their dissatisfaction against the ritualistic Brahmanism and Vedic sacrifices. So, later Vedic age, I have discussed just now that caste system, it had started. Early Vedic age, it was based on the skill. Based on the occupation, this caste was formed. But coming to later Vedic age, it was by birth, and they encouraged these rituals and sacrifices. So there were a group of people like Brahmins, they became more powerful, and they were the only one who can chant Vedas, and others, they were not even allowed to hear Vedas. So people expressed this dissatisfaction against the ritualistic Brahmanism and Vedic sacrifices. So these Brahmins, they started acting as the representative of gods. So they were the ones who connect people to God. So they were the mediators, and these Vedic sacrifices and rituals, it became so elaborate that there were social religious transformation which has happened, and there emerged numerous sects and reformatory movements. So here just understand that other religions had originated during this 6th century BC due to the social injustice which was happening in the society, and this period is called the ancient period in history. So this period, called the ancient period in history, saw the rise of two important religions called as Jainism and Buddhism. Now, coming to another religion called Buddhism. This religion, Buddhism, it has originated in India during the 6th century BC. The power of the Brahmins which has increased, and the ritualistic practices which was there, which led to a new transformation, that is a new religion which has originated, that is Buddhism. Gautama Buddha was the founder of Buddhism. He was born in 563 BC at Lumbini, which is situated near the Indo-Nepal border. So actually he was born in a royal family, and his father, it was Shuddhodana. He was the chief of Shakya of Kapilavastu. So this prince, he had realized and he left the kingdom and started bringing transformation in the society. At the age of 29, Gautama Buddha left home and attained Bodhi, that is enlightenment, at Bodh Gaya under a peepal tree. So it is believed that this Gautama Buddha, when he had realized, he started meditation, and for around 49 days he was doing meditation. This Gautama Buddha, he had realized and started meditation for almost 49 days, and it is believed that on the 49th day he got this enlightenment sitting under a peepal tree. That place became famous as Bodh Gaya. He died at the age of 80 at Kushinagar in Uttar Pradesh. Gautama Buddha delivered his first sermon at Saranath near Varanasi, and his teachings include 4 noble truths, that is Arya Sathya and enlightened eightfold path, that is Ashtangiga Marga. So he encouraged people to follow noble truths and eightfold path. So we are going to discuss about this. According to Buddha, the world is full of misery. So his own life he is showing as an example. So the world is full of miseries and desire is the cause of this misery. The man which is having all the desires to try, the people will be trying to fulfill those desires. So that is the main cause of this misery. And if desire is conquered, then all sorrows can be removed. So if you can seal these desires, you will be able to remove all the sorrows of the world. Here, coming to eightfold path. One has to follow this eightfold path, that is right view. People should have right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right concentration, and right mindfulness. According to Gautama Buddha, one has to follow this eightfold path to attain salvation. Buddha suggested a middle path away from both extreme luxury as well as extreme austerity. So one has to follow the middle path. That is, he also laid down a code of conduct such as non-killing and non-stealing for his followers. So here he died at the age of 80 at Kushinagara in Uttar Pradesh. He had laid down a code of conduct. One has to follow the code of conduct, the middle path, such as non-killing, that is non-violence, and non-stealing for his followers. Again, he had died at the age of 80 at Kushinagara in Uttar Pradesh. Now, coming to Jainism. The founder of Jainism, that is Rishabhanath. And this Vartamana Mahavira was the 24th Tirthangara of this sect. So just understand this Vartamana Mahavira, he was the 24th Tirthangara of Jainism. Mahavira was born in 540 BC at Kundagram near Vaishali, that is in Bihar, and his father was the chief of Jatrika Kshatriya clan. So his father belonged to this Kshatriya clan, and Mahavira became an ascetic at the age of 30 years and died at Pavapuri in 468 BC near Rajagriha. So just understand, due to the rituals and sacrifice, the importance of Hinduism, it has reduced. And people, they were ready, the common men, as these teachings of Buddhism and Jainism, these leaders, both Mahavira and Buddha, Gautama Buddha, their teachings, it was in the language which was familiar to the common men. That has led to the spread of these two religions, that is Buddhism and Jainism, in the 6th century BC. His followers came to be known as Jainas. So the followers of Jainism, it is Jainas. Jainism had no place for a supreme creator. So here they doesn't believe in a creator. It recognized the existence of gods but placed them lower than the Jaina teachers. So rather than giving importance to God, they gave importance to their gurus or the teachers. The main aim of Jainism is the attainment of freedom from worldly bonds. Here also it is one has to attain freedom from the worldly bonds. Like Buddhism, Jainism opposed the ritualistic practices and evils of Vedic Brahmins. So both Jainism and Buddhism, they were against the power of these Brahmins. At the same time, they were against the ritualistic practices. It also opposed the caste system and accepted the doctrine of karma and rebirth. So they were against this caste discrimination in the society and accepted the doctrine of karma. See, if our doing is good, that means good karma, the doctrine of karma and rebirth. Jainism has 5 cardinal principles, like we have discussed in Buddhism, the eightfold path. Similarly, here they are having 5 cardinal principles. Jainism has 5 cardinal principles, that is ahimsa or non-violence. So ahimsa, that means non-violence. Then truthfulness, abstention from stealing, that means detached from stealing, non-attachment and celibacy or brahmacharya. There should not be any attachment, and celibacy or brahmacharya, that means detached from marriage. The three jewels, that is three ratna of Jainism, that is right vision, that is samyak darshana, right knowledge, that is samyak jnana, and right conduct, that is samyak charita. So one has to follow right vision. Whatever we see, it should be good things. You should have good right knowledge, and that is right conduct, that is samyak charita. Now coming to the first empire in India, that is Mauryan period. Out of the 16 Mahajanapadas, it was Magadha that expanded considerably under the powerful rulers like Bimbisara, Ajatashatru and Mahapadmananda. So just understand the first kingdom in India, that is this Mauryan kingdom. It is believed to be the period that is 322 BC to 184 BC. The last king of the Nanda dynasty was defeated by Chandragupta Maurya in 322 BC. Just understand that this Chandragupta Maurya, who had defeated the last Nanda king, that is Dhanananda. This Chandragupta was captured by this Dhanananda and kept in his cellar, and tactfully he could escape from the hands of these Nandas. And it is believed that he was roaming in his kingdom, trying to conquer this kingdom, that is the Magadha kingdom. And he tried to conquer this Nanda, Dhanananda. This Chandragupta Maurya tried to defeat this last king of Nanda dynasty, that is Dhanananda, several times, but he couldn't defeat him easily. It is believed that once he was roaming through the outskirts of this kingdom, that is Magadha, and he happened to see one mother serving hot rice to his son. Son was very hungry. As soon as he saw the rice, out of hunger, he tried to eat rice in a hurry. When he tried to eat, his hands got burnt. Then his mother started advising this child, see, you don't behave like Chandragupta Maurya. If you want to eat rice, slowly from the heap of rice, start eating from the corners first, and when you reach the middle part, it will be cold and you will be able to eat it. So this Chandragupta Maurya, he happened to hear this. Then he had understood that rather than going and attacking the Magadha kingdom, which is very powerful, he started conquering from the border regions. Here he got the support of Chanakya or Kaudilya, which was also having enmity with this Nanda dynasty. So the brilliance of this the brilliance of Chanakya and the power of Chandragupta Maurya worked, and a new kingdom which was formed, which is the first empire in India, that is Mauryan kingdom. So the last king of the Nanda dynasty was defeated by Chandragupta Maurya in 322 BC. And actually it is believed that this Alexander came and cleared the path for Chandragupta Maurya. He established the Mauryan empire, uprooting the Greeks from the Punjab and Nandas from the Gangetic plain. So he had overthrown even the Greeks and the Punjab and the Nandas from the Gangetic plain. By a continuous process of conquest and annexation, he was able to unify almost the whole of India. So the first time entire India came under one king. And who is the king? Yes, Chandragupta Maurya. Chandragupta ruled from 22 BC to 297. He embraced Jainism under the influence of Bhadrabahu. So later on he became the follower of Jainism under the influence of Bhadrabahu. And he died at Travanabelgola near Mysore. Bindusara, the son and successor of Chandragupta Maurya, was also known as Mitra Ghada, that is slayer of enemies. So after this powerful king, the most powerful king among the Mauryas, that is Chandragupta Maurya, his son became the successor, that is Bindusara. He is said to have conquered Deccan, extending Mauryan control as far as Mysore. He also had contacts with Antiochus I, the Greek ruler of West Asia. So he had expanded the kingdom, and it appears from the Buddhist literature that after the death of Bindusara, there was a struggle for the throne among his sons. So this Bindusara, he had continued the expansion after Chandragupta Maurya. Yes, it appears from the Buddhist literature that after the death of Bindusara, there was a struggle for the throne among his sons. So a war of succession, it was there among his sons for the empire. Ashoka emerged victorious in this fratricidal war of succession and ascended the throne of Magadha. So the successful king who continued the Mauryan dynasty, that was Ashoka. An important event of this reign was the famous Kalinga War in 260 BC, mentioned in his rock edict, that is 13. So just understand, an important event in his reign, it was Kalinga War. See, it is believed that King Ashoka had expanded the kingdom throughout India, and the only region or the kingdom which was not under his control was the Kalinga. And it is believed that after this Kalinga War, this Ashoka had embraced Buddhism, and he had this rock edicts mainly to spread the teachings of Buddhism. And he had decided not to touch weapons after this Kalinga War, and through the teachings of Buddhism, he could manage the kingdom. Later, Ashoka embraced Buddhism and gave up war. He was a benevolent ruler and did many things for the welfare of his subjects. His policy of Dhamma was based on religious toleration, respect to elders, care for the old, kindness, truthfulness, and purity. So after this Kalinga War, when he embraced Buddhism, he started working for his subjects. And his policy of Dhamma, and there were offices called Dhamma Mahamatras to spread the teachings of this Dhamma. So based on the religious toleration, so he was religious tolerant, and he respected the elders and care for the old, and he was kindful, truthful, and there was purity. It was through his effort that Buddhism spread beyond the boundaries of India, and it is believed that this King Ashoka had sent his son and daughter Mahendra and Sanghamitra to other part of the world to spread the teachings of Buddhism. That is how this religion has spread to the other part of the world. The rock edicts and pillar edicts inscribed by him gave a detailed account of his reign, about his ruling and how good the king was. All those details we are getting from the rock edicts. After Ashoka's death, his empire disintegrated into pieces. So the kingdom, it was divided into different pieces. And there was also the danger of foreign invasion. They were worried about the foreign invasion. The economic condition of the country deteriorated, and the last king of the Mauryan dynasty, it was Brihadratha. So the last king of this Mauryan dynasty, it was Brihadratha. Later on, the kingdom was divided into different pieces. We'll discuss the questions. Index questions. Describe the social, religious, and economic life of the early Vedic period. What were the main occupations of the people in the later Vedic period? What is Dhamma according to Ashoka? Which religion did Ashoka embrace after the Kalinga War? Thank you. Jai Sai Ram.